Hi, and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books from the shelf, dust them off, and remind ourselves why it is we love them. My name is Tom Galley, and joining me today is Tony Pasculi.
Thanks, Tom.
And what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Lev Grossman's The Magicians, a novel about a boy who gets into a magic university and hijinks ensue. Yeah.
Hijinks ensue. Now, they made a TV series about this.
Oh, they did. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. It's awful. Have you seen it?
I watched at least some of it. My recollection is that I bailed on it partway through because it was god-awful.
Yeah.
But I really am sad that I saw any of it because there were things I read, and I was like, oh, I know what's about to happen. And I was like, oh, I really wish I didn't know what was about to happen.
Yeah.
That made me sad. But anyway, why is this a favorite book?
Well, it's interesting that I call it a favorite. I think the first time I read it, it was among my favorite fantasy novels I'd ever read because it does so much so well, and it's striking. And I think, though, that every time I read it, I admire it more and like it less. Because the main character is awful. He is a garbage human. And I don't know, maybe that appeals to you. You like broken people. He starts off broken and he breaks harder.
No, he... I made a note. He reminds me of Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye. I mean, he is just... So the novel is subdivided into 4 books.
Yes.
At the end of book 1, I was kind of on board. I kind of liked Quentin. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked Alice. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked Penny. At the end of book 2, I didn't like anybody.
Yeah.
And then for the remainder of book 3 and book 4, not a single one of them redeemed themselves. So
Nope.
I finished this book not liking anyone involved.
Yes. So there's that, and that's a challenge with the book, that the characters are pretty unlikable, but they're unlikable for good reason, and thematically it's appropriate to the book. So thematically this book I appreciate more and more and more every time I read it. The theming is dense and well considered, and the prose is gorgeous too. I really love the prose. I'll single out some lines later. But one of the ideas here is that power corrupts, which is a pretty tame idea, power/privilege. In our other sort of fantasy school famous series, we have Harry Potter, and it's a pretty rosy picture of what it'd be like to give a bunch of young people incredible power. Because they mostly do not murder each other in the halls. There's a couple of incidents between Harry and Draco. There's some threatening things by the teachers, but they mostly turn out to be misunderstandings. And there's a big external threat who sort of keeps everybody in line. And also they bring all these young people together for Harry Potter. As well as one of my objections to Harry Potter is you bring a bunch of young people and you shove them into close quarters together for 7 years, and there's no teen pregnancy, what? and there's no drug abuse, and there's no alcoholism, and it's like, what kind of perfect cross-section of society is this? Yeah. And I think the idea there is that, well, 1, she's writing a children's series, but 2, that they are somehow better than other people. Yeah. And what Grossman does here is he makes it clear these are not better than other people. In no way are they better. In most ways, they're actually worse. They're just smarter. They're more clever. If they didn't end up at Break Bills, they would have ended up on Wall Street. They would have gone to Jane Street. They would have become quants or lawyers, mm-hmm. or absolute, absolute assholes in the finance world instead. Instead, they're absolute assholes here with magic. Yeah, it's the exact same paradigm. I like to compare this to Less Than Zero. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a bunch of people who are just so rich and have so much privilege and power and just absolutely so bored with their lives that they destroy them with drugs.
I love the fact, and again, I don't know if I like the book, but I love the fact that the greatest threat magicians face is ennui.
Yes.
There is no external threat. There is no Legion of Evil or, Hall of Justice or anything like that. They're simply a bunch of intelligent, powerful people who no longer have a purpose once they've graduated from school.
Yes.
And it wrecks pretty much all of them. Everyone that we see, either the students that we stick with or the parents, the magical parents that we encounter. The only people in this book that are remotely well-adjusted are the faculty.
Yes.
Because they have a purpose.
Yes. Yeah, I think the parent scene is really compelling. And what's amazing about it is you look at these people and there's like they're redecorating their houses of Roman whatever, or composing music for fairies, which may or may not exist. And you just think, oh my God, what pointless, stupid lives these people lead. And then when Quentin talks about his parents, who are muggles, basically, they're the same. They're just like serving on boards and working at corporations and also similarly leading lives of quiet desperation with no overriding purpose or mission or anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love Alice's line here where she says that having 2 kids might have given them at least 2 reasons to be involved with the world, but somehow did not. Yeah. So they could have been involved with their kids' lives and chose not to be. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Alice does. We get the feeling when we first meet Alice that she has suffered something horribly traumatic that no child should have to ever undergo, and it turns out she simply has neglectful parents. She is broken in a way that I think she was not made of very stern stuff.
Yes.
If simply being ignored by her parents took her apart like that.
Well, there's also what happens to her brother.
Well, her brother died. That's all she knew is her brother died.
Yeah.
Okay, her brother, it turns out, did die kind of horrifically, but she doesn't find that out until she's, almost an adult.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Okay, getting back to theme. Poor Quentin, who grows up reading Fillory and Further, a series of books, which are basically the analogs of the Narnia series. And so he's always dreamed of a better world. There's somewhere out there's a better world. I'm not meant to be living in this world. That's why I'm unhappy. If only I could have been born into Fillory and conversed with talking rabbits and la 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 la. And then the really amazing thing that happens in this book is that this particular group of characters are the first ones to discover that Fillory actually exists and manage to travel there. And so they go to this magical world. And, well, 1, it's not what they expected. But 2, it doesn't make them happy to be there. And makes Quentin even more miserable than he already was. He gets everything he ever wanted. First, he discovers that magic is real, and he gets into Magic University. And then he discovers that Fillory is real, and he gets to travel to Fillory. And no matter what happens in life, he just gets more and more and more miserable.
Yeah.
So, second theme is that you've got to find delight with what you have. You can't go looking for it elsewhere because you're never going to find it. Nothing is ever going to make you happy if you're not happy to begin with. Which he sort of comes to understand at the end, but I don't think the book really sticks the landing.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He gets so butthurt that he gives up magic altogether, and spends a few years being a corporate something, basically, living off the teat of the magician's infinite bank account.
Yes.
And then, in our closing scene, his old classmates, plus his not really girlfriend.
His ex-crush, Julia.
Who had spent the entire book going, he's going to bring her back. He's going to bring her back. He's going to bring her back. And then the last page, she's back. And the big thing is, okay, he flies out the window to go to Fillory again.
Yeah.
Because it was such a rewarding experience the first time.
Yeah. I got to, okay, so speaking of Julia, since we're talking about Julia, book 2 is largely about Julia's experience. And it is pretty harrowing and very compelling, but man, it's not something I recommend to people because it's just horrific. Yeah.
Well, see, now you've got my interest intrigued
okay.
there. Because my thinking was, if book 2 is about these same characters, I'm really just not interested in it.
No, it's not.
Good.
Yeah. And I don't think you'd enjoy book 3, which is Quentin as an old man who's maybe sort of finally learned something, but maybe not. It's just, it's so depressing. Yeah. I can't remember rereading it. Yeah.
I mean, the Julia thing was kind of masterful because maybe he saw her in the exam room when he first shows up at Break Bills. And then, he's gone for months.
Yeah.
And then when he sees his friends again, she's not talking, but he figures she's just pissed because, he was gone for months. And then a couple of years later, she corners him in cemetery, I think.
Yeah,
And she has just gone bonkers because she was there and she got kicked out and she remembers it. And she has found a spell. She can work a spell that she has somehow found out. And she's just going completely stark raving mad. And he runs away from her. He promises to do something. He does nothing for months before he finally tells the dean on her. And I'm like, you can't just let that hang there.
Yeah.
And then, as I'm getting into the last chapter, I'm like, well, he dropped that line. He just left it hanging there. And then I get to the last page, and there she is floating outside the window.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact that just catching a glimpse of there is something more to reality than what you think just destroys you. Yeah. It's like there is something more. There is something real out there, and you can't find your way to it. How incredibly frustrating that must be.
Failed sanity check.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I love that. I love that a little bit, and I love that he dedicates book 2 to that story. Book 2 is mostly what happens in between that encounter with Quentin and the encounter at the end where she's flying around with the others. Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in reading that.
It's amazing. It's great. There's an incredibly violent sexual assault in the middle of it, so be prepared for that.
So there's my trauma.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So another thing is this idea that because all the Chatwin kids go to Fillory, it turns out that these books, Fillory and Further, are actually based on actual adventures of actual children who went to Fillory and came back and told them to their next door neighbor, Christopher Plover, who wrote them down as novels, and was also molesting one of the children, Martin. Yeah. Which is why he was trying to hide in a grandfather clock and discovered Fillory in the first place. Yeah. And so there's this image we have of Fillory from these books, and when they show up there, that's not what it is at all. And I think there's this idea that that the innocence of childhood protects you from reality in a sense. Yeah, that the reality is this bleak, awful thing, but because you're a kid, you can't appreciate it for how horrible it truly is. And as long as you survive it, it was like a marvelous adventure. It's sort of the Life is Beautiful, if you saw that movie. Did you see this?
No.
This is where a guy and his son get sent to a concentration camp, and to protect his son from the horrors of the concentration camp, he pretends that they're playing a game with the guards. Yeah, this is all a big elaborate game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's wild. It's amazing that it works at all. Yeah. Yeah, because when they get there, they are not innocent. They are not kids, and they see this for the full horror that it is, a horrible, awful, fucked up place. And then Grossman just really hammers it home with, I think Quentin says something to this effect. Growing up is basically giving up your dreams. You have this fantasy idea of what life is going to be like, and then it just gets ripped away from you. And you go, okay, now I'm an adult. Now that I realize everything is shit, I'm a grown up. And I'm like, oh my God, you, Lev Grossman. That's not what being an adult is. Why are you so unhappy?
He's doing it wrong.
Yeah. That said, this is an amazing book. It's an amazing book. It is, I compare it to Harry Potter a lot. It works a lot of the same ways as Harry Potter. This story talked about like the delight on every page of Harry Potter of having like Bernie Bott's every flavored beans or some other weird thing. And this book is stuffed full of that. It's just very much more grown up stuff. It's not every flavored beans, but it's, the mysterious being under the sea when they're flying to Antarctica. And it's, just these weird sort of, one of their teachers is a fairy. They mention that he has wings and he's a fairy. And
no, he's a pixie.
A pixie, correct, yes.
Pixie. Yeah, because Quentin says, I'm sorry, are you a fairy? And he's like, I prefer pixie, or pixie technically, or something like that.
It's like, are there more pixies in the world? What the hell? There's all these sort of, there's a great, I think it's Tolkien, he talks this great quote. He says, to make your fantasy world expansive, you gotta put a lighthouse on the farthest shore that is reaching out beyond. Yeah, there's something else out there that's still unexplored. Mm-hmm. And Grossman does that all over the place. He just drops his little, we could just go chase down this rabbit hole for a million years, but moving on. Yeah, I got to stick to this narrative. But it feels so rich. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they make open fun of other magical things. You mentioned Harry Potter. They
Yes.
make fun of Harry Potter
Yeah.
repeatedly in this book. They mention Tolkien. They never specifically mention Narnia, but so much of the structure of this is straight out of
Yeah.
Narnia. Down to, there are 4 thrones for 2 men and 2 women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have to be Earth humans. Daughters of Adam and daughters of Eve and children of Adam, sons of Adam, something like that.
Yeah, he did a surgical transplant of Narnia with Fillory in order to take some liberties that he has to take. Because you don't want to be saying that C.S. Lewis, f***ed his next door neighbor. That would be rude. Yeah. So, and that's it turns out to be an essential plot point, right?
It does. It does. And yeah, that was a moment, when they're in the classroom and then the beast appears and the leaf is in front of his face. I'm like, that's Martin Chatwin.
Wow.
Now, do I know that because it's just exactly the sort of plot twist I expect out of a book like this? Or do I know this because I watched that stupid TV show?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I'm either very clever or it's just a ghost of a memory floating around from a
If you got it, you're very clever. I'll give you credit. I'll say you're clever. Yeah.
But I don't know, when they do reveals like that, it's just almost a trope. It's like they have mentioned in passing that in one of the books, one of the children didn't come back.
Yes.
And later on, there's this mysterious beast. Well, clearly that's the missing child. Who else could it be?
Yeah. I still think it's a pretty great reveal, though. I love it. They're looking for Martin. He does show up, and he's awful. He is a monster. Yeah, and a very powerful one.
A very powerful one, but it turns out not a very effective one.
Yes. Well, yes.
But yeah, there's that moment when he throws the twig aside so you can see his face, and there's this, paragraph or two saying, and it's just a face.
Yeah.
There's nothing evil about it. There's nothing deformed or hurtful.
Yeah.
This is just a guy.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned his first appearance in the classroom. That is one of my favorite chapters in this book because, nothing happens. It's just, time sort of freezes. They're all stuck there, but it goes on for hours and there's so much tension. And it's just like, are we ever going to escape from this thing? What does this guy want? Who is he? What's going on? And then very casually in the last line of the chapter, and they found out that Amanda Orloff had been eaten alive. Yeah. Just wow.
Yeah. That was, in terms of flexing, right?
Yeah.
Pop in the classroom, stop time, and they're in there for a day.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was unknown or ignored. Immediately the rest of the school knows what's going on. Immediately the faculty are summoned to do battle.
Yeah.
I seem to recall a couple of them get hurt pretty badly in various attempts. Amanda, however, she wakes up, tries to do a counterspell, and then, pays for it. But
Yeah.
Martin is completely indifferent to the people in the classroom, just sitting there,
to
just
an
flexing.
entire magical university. Yeah. He's also inside all their wards. There's supposed to be wards all over this thing, keeping people out. Yeah. And he sneaks right by. So I love that. But I also love, just the writing of it. That Grossman is able to sustain that much tension for very nearly an entire chapter of just a man in a suit walking around a classroom while they're all frozen solid.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. And I love that they call him the Beast also. He's an English guy in a suit. The Beast. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna rip through some notes here. Just the writing. I just love this. The opening line, Quentin did a magic trick. Nobody noticed. That's so good as an opening line. And then this is very early on. You couldn't have everything, or at least the available evidence pointed overwhelmingly to that conclusion.
I highlighted that.
Yeah, that's a very almost Douglas Adamsy line.
Yep.
And then, go ahead.
Lev does a couple of things in here, or he repeatedly tells and doesn't show. And I don't approve of that. But your mention of the magic trick made me think about that, because when we're introduced to Quentin, and again, the Holden Caulfield comparison is pretty strong. He's just shuffling along with his friends. He's the odd wheel out.
Yeah.
He's presented as a loser. The one skill he has is magic. He's hiding.
Yeah.
He's slumped because he's tall, and he's self-conscious about being tall and aware of that. And yet when they put him in the classroom, The room filled with a collective rustling of paper, like a flock of birds taking off. Heads bowed in unison, Quentin recognized this motion. It was the motion of a bunch of high-powered Type A test killers getting down to their bloody work. That was all right. He was one of them.
Yeah.
Not a moment, not a hint have we seen of this, and he trots out a critical character trait just offhandedly like that. And it's not the first, well, it's the first time. It's not the only time he does that in the book. He gives us tell, don't show, which...
I think we do see elements of this because when we first meet him, he's on his way to interview for Princeton. Yeah.
Well, okay, so there is that.
Yes. And he's someone who can master magic just for fun. And he's someone who is pals with James and Julia. And they talk about how these guys have been bumping into each other over and over. I mean, again, we don't show it. It's told to us. But he says...
At these advanced placement classes.
Yes, and they keep, going into more and more highly refined high schools and after-school programs and competing for the Putnam and the this and the that, and they're just like so they're bumping into each other over and over and over again. The best of the best of the best is who these people are. Yeah. So I think that, again, it's not shown so much as told, but we're told. Yeah.
Well, we are told, and it is critical to who he is and who he becomes.
Yeah. I highly suspect that Lev Grossman is one of these people, that he is just a smart guy who hung around with a lot of other smart people, and they were all just really unhappy. Because that's how this book reads to me. I mean, the whole magic thing reads as an allegory for what could be this whole thing could be about effective altruists or AI researchers or quants on Wall Street. Or lawyers or finance bros. Yeah, it just happens to be about magic, and that makes it a little bit more fun. But the basic character types are right there already. Yeah, so. You mentioned that Quentin was tall and ashamed of his height. There's another characterization of him I like really early on. Was thin and tall, though he habitually hunched his shoulders in a vain attempt to brace himself against whatever blow was coming from the heavens, and which would logically hit the tall people first.
Again, another Douglas Adams dry humor moment there. Yeah.
I love that. Yes. And then, so much of this book is about, he's talking about the theme, very sort of on the nose, but very, very eloquently. This is also pretty early on. Quentin knew he wasn't happy. Why not? He had painstakingly assembled all the ingredients of happiness. He had performed all the necessary rituals, spoken the words, lit the candles, made the sacrifices, but happiness, like a disobedient spirit, refused to come. He couldn't think what else to do.
I did not realize how prophetic that statement is.
Yeah.
At the time, clearly. If I were to read this again, I'd be like, oh, wow. You just gave the book away.
Oh, yeah. It's all there. Every time I read this book, I go through and I highlight more shit and just like, oh my God, yes, right there and right there and right there. There's just so much of it.
He's gotten to break bills, and he's got his first encounter with, the flamboyant one. Elliot.
Yeah.
And Elliot is sending him down to a hard fact here. Everyone here was the cleverest little monkey in his or her particular tree.
Yes.
Except now we're all in one tree together. It can be a shock. Not enough coconuts to go around. You'll be dealing with your equals for the first time in your life. And your betters. You won't like it.
Yes. It's so true. I don't know if I've told this story before. I was one of the smartest people in my high school. And we did some math competition at the high school level, and me and one other guy got sent to the state level. And this is in California. Mm-hmm. So we went from a high school of 800 people to a state competition of, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, I don't know, of the smartest people from all over the state. And they administered us this 4-hour test, and there were 20 questions on it, and I only understood 2 of the questions. I only answered 2 of the questions because the other 18 were just like, I don't even know what the question is. I don't understand this at all. And there were people who aced this thing and just like, God damn, I am so out of my league here. I never felt so stupid in my life. Yeah. So completely outclassed by going from my, king of my high school to bottom of the barrel. Finished in the lowest 5% on that test. They gave us our scores afterwards. It's like, wow, that was a wake-up call.
Humility called, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least you were in the elite barrel. Even if it was the bottom of the elite barrel, it was the elite barrel.
Sure. I suppose there's a lesson you could take from that. Yes. Yeah.
The expectation, well, not all of them share this, but Penny and Quentin and Janet, I think, all seem to think that when they go into Fillory, it's going to be like the novels. That they're going to be presented with a task or a quest, that they will be assisted on their way, that they will survive to complete said task or quest, and it'll basically be preordained. And I'm genuinely annoyed that that's actually what happened, because they're outsiders. They broke into Fillory. They weren't invited into Fillory unless, it's a grander scheme that their struggle and their breaking in was actually the invitation.
Oh, yeah. They were set up by Jane
Martin.
Chetwin.
Yeah.
No, by Jane.
By Jane, because of Martin.
Yes. Yeah.
They weren't they?
Yeah.
Never mind. Forget that whole argument.
Yeah, no, I think it's a legitimate argument because we don't find that out until
the end. And it didn't stick when I read it.
Yes.
There's I was bitching about this earlier, and now I find out, you're right, they were set up.
Yeah. There's a wonderful passage about that where, because Jane Martin, who is one of the kids who goes into Fillory, and is the sister of, Jane Chatwin. Jane Chatwin, who is the sister of Martin Chatwin, has been trying to stop her brother all this time. And she's the paramedic that Quentin encounters at the beginning. The guy he goes for his interview for Princeton, and the guy who's supposed to interview him dies of a heart attack, just weirdly, coincidentally. And the paramedic who shows up there is Jane Chatwin in disguise.
I don't think he died coincidentally. I think that's a timeline that she picked because he died.
Possibly, but she didn't cause his death, and it was it just sort of worked out that way. Yeah. So she's trying to get Quentin. There's so many of these names are the same. She's trying to get Quentin into break bills so that he can be the one who goes through and defeats Martin eventually in Fillory, or actually so that he'll drag Alice along, who goes only to protect him, and Alice is the one who kills Martin. Yeah. And she's also the Watcher woman who has time travel and this magical watch that allows her to go back and do things again. And he's like, well, go back and let's do it again and let's save Alice. He's like, you can't do it. This is not the first time I tried to defeat Martin. You are not the first people to come through here, and this is not the first time you have fought this battle. Yeah, you have done this over and over and over, and this is the only time that we won, so we're sticking with it. Yeah. That's just,
And she shatters the magical pocket watch to make sure of it. Trying to, and everyone's seen science fiction stories about this where you've got time travel, but you can't undo the thing you're trying to do, no matter what, it seems, as Dr. Who would say, it's a fixed point in time. So you can hear as she's trying to talk him down from this, and you see her happiness fade, and you get a glimpse of this incredible fatigue hiding underneath it. How many times has she lived this life only to lose the battle again and have to start over? How many times has she run that loop? And she's finally come up with a conclusion that has Martin dead. And I'm sorry, I'm ever so sorry, but we're not touching it.
Yeah, can't give that up. Can't give up a victory like that. Yeah, so Alice dies, and I feel like that is really on Quentin's head.
Well, now, okay. Dies is a subjective word there. She becomes a niffin?
A niffin, yeah. She becomes a niffin.
So there's still something out there that's vaguely Alice-shaped and incredibly powerful running around. So, I mean, you've read the books, you know what it does and doesn't do. But, I mean, it's conceivable that a future book could be going back to reclaim the niffin, to reinsert her humanity.
I have read the other books, and I don't remember if Alice comes back or not.
I would assume that she doesn't.
Yeah. But from the way that we talk about her brother, I assume that niffins eventually sort of burn out because he's not around. Yeah. He's treated as if he's dead. He becomes a niffin. And then he's never heard from again. So he's not hanging around the school like a Hogwarts ghost. Yeah. So maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But she's certainly unavailable to Quentin in any significant way, and she's unavailable to her former life in any significant way. So it's as good as.
As good as,
Yeah. So he's responsible. I mean, he doesn't kill her, but she's there for him, even though he clearly doesn't deserve it because he cheats on her. Yeah, but she still loves him, and she's there to make sure he doesn't die in Fillory, and she dies as a consequence. And he is also responsible for the beast getting in and consuming Amanda Orloff. So he's got two souls on him.
Now that, I dispute his self-assessment that he's responsible for the beast getting in. He conducted a school prank.
Yeah.
At a time when the professor was casting a spell that he really shouldn't have been casting in the first place, that was really not something he had clear control of. And those two coincidences lined up, and the beast found a weakness that it could exploit. But it's not like Quentin, his entire purpose was to make the professor look more foolish than he was already looking in front of the class, as he had already failed to cast the spell on more than one occasion.
I guess I assign him more responsibility here. I take it as, imagine your chemistry professor was saying, now today we're working with sodium and something else highly volatile, and this is going to be extremely dangerous. And then you decided to shoot peas at him, and he dropped it into the flask rather than lowering it gently or something like that, and chaos ensues. Yeah. So I think Quentin at this point should know better than to interfere with someone who is doing magic, especially a complex magic, because it is likely to go wrong. And when magic goes wrong, it doesn't go wrong in a fun way.
This is true.
So,
I'm still putting it on the professor because he was clearly out of his league with this spell he's trying to demonstrate. That was irresponsible behavior.
I guess the fact that Quentin puts it on himself is plausible to me.
Well, I think it's completely plausible. I think it's in keeping with his character.
Yeah.
I just disagree with his assessment.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So the fact that he puts it on himself, but then does nothing to atone for it, pisses me off.
It is so in keeping with everything else he's shown us.
Yes.
You said earlier he was a shit human being.
Yes.
And this is simply another bullet point of confirmation.
Yes. Yeah. If you feel that guilty about it, fellow student's death, then do something, make it mean something, become a better person. Oh my God, just anything other than sort of moping about it and becoming worse.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked about Julia. He saw what Julia had become. He saw what remembering the Break Bill's exam was doing to her, and he sat on that information for months before getting around to snitching to the dean, who may or may not have done anything about it. He didn't bother to follow up.
Yeah, he cheats on Alice with Janet of all people, and not only does he cheat on Alice, when she confronts him about it, he tries to rationalize it. He's like, it's not that big a deal, and you don't understand. And
I think that's completely appropriate, not appropriate, but completely consistent behavior for a 19, 20-year-old, which is what they are at this point in time.
Sure.
Somebody that's still figuring out the ropes, that still feels entitled in ways that only young people seem to.
Yeah.
Apologies to any young people listening to this podcast. Clearly you have better taste and have evolved farther.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, I'm very frustrated with him as a human being. This is not who I want my protagonist to be. I don't want to be inside this person's head. This is like Angus Thermopylae.
I was just thinking that very thing. Yep. We're trapped in an unpleasant place. There's a lot of parallels, actually. The way you talk about this, how every time you go through, you're more and more in awe of the writing. I'm the same way with that Gap series. Every time I go through, I see more and more stuff to go, wow, I would worship at the altar of Stephen R. Donaldson.
Yeah. There's parallels here with Thomas Covenant too. Thomas Covenant, who famously is a leper and gets ushered into a magical world where he has immense power, and he's just, a whiny little bitch about it. It's like, come on, dude, come on, enjoy your fate. You've been given a gift, and you're just like, didn't want it.
All right, that's going higher on the list now. I was trying to give you a Covenant break, but all right. Nitpicky thing here.
Go for it.
It has always bothered me, and this is by no means the first time, that magic is associated with anything vocal and anything hand wavy, right? Who in the universe is watching to see if you got your fingers, your jazz hands, in the right position? Who in the universe is listening to your diction and intonation? Okay, it's magic. It's hard to draw direct parallels, but name me a physical force that you can manipulate that is different if you yell at it, or that's different depending on how you wave your hands. Chemistry works, right? You put sodium in water, you get a reaction.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you said explodiamus beforehand, it's going to do it. Whether you said the word, whether you didn't say the word, regardless of where your jazz hands were. What in the universe is attentive to your posture, your movements, your articulation?
All right. So I think the answer for the book is it's just magic. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's magic, so it's got its own rules. It doesn't have to make sense.
But I think,
and they even say that.
Yeah. But the answer that I would give if I had written this book was the audience is you. That this is what you have to do to summon the magic, is to be getting this precise, this, and this is what makes you hyper aware of what it is you're trying to do so you can focus your will.
Right. So if it's a tool of focusing, like, chanting if you were a monk, or, striking a certain pose in yoga.
Yeah.
But it's not at that point actually attached. There's not a causal relationship between experiomus and the light appearing.
Yes.
It's something you forged.
Yeah.
Right. So you could forge whatever you want to. And they play with that just a little bit.
Yeah.
And this actually annoys me because they take Quentin across a border, a boundary, when he makes the trek to the South Pole.
Yeah.
Right. And then the guy is hugging him and he's so happy. He's like, you're actually a magician. You've internalized this now, which he promptly never visits again, even when it would be really, really useful in combat later on. Yeah. Suddenly he can only do the spells he's learned. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then he does, this is one thing he matures, one way in which he matures is after that encounter and all his friends have abandoned him and he's recuperating, he sort of goes into his own self-imposed exile and really masters magic in a way that he thought he had at the South Pole, but hadn't. So that he can basically, improvise at that point because he knows it so well. And then chooses to do nothing with it except work a fake job on Wall Street. Yeah. So.
No, I mean, the entire purpose of that was so he could track down the questing beast and get out of Fillory. That was the entire motivation behind his thing. And I really love that moment. He shot the questing beast through the leg, and he goes down there, and the questing beast pulls your eyes like, that really hurts.
Yeah.
Like, how many times has this poor thing gotten shot?
Yeah. Well, he estimates once a century because he is very hard to catch. Yeah. Here's another one of Grossman drops in these sort of little notes all through the book. And it's, tell me this, can a man who can cast a spell ever really grow up? That is just such a great line that really captures Quentin. Yeah, for sure. It's like, oh yeah, you don't have to grow up now. You're all powerful. You can do anything you want. Reality is yours. Now what? Oh, I don't know.
It seems to me that you would have an evil league of evil just because people would be looking for something to do, right?
Yeah,
so, hey, we could form 2 clubs and we could go to war. Yeah.
Yeah. And they do talk about that. They talk about sort of magical war games. They just don't affect the mundanes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Janet, I thought, was an inconsistent character, or at least she was presented to me, and I took her in an inconsistent way. Right. So early on, when they're learning to play not Quidditch,
welters,
which I was disappointed. We didn't ever get a very satisfactory explanation of how welters worked, I thought.
Yeah, no, not really.
As they're training, Janet has appointed herself as leader of the team. And at the end of their day of training, when they're all tired and grumpy and nobody's happy, without me, Janet said again with fierce glee, blotting tears of laughter with the heel of her hand, you people would be lost.
Yeah.
Nobody was having a good time, including Janet, and then suddenly she's, reveling in it. But then when we get down to the end of the book, and Richard doesn't want to go on the quest with them. They're in Fillory, and Richard stays in the inn.
Yeah.
Janet comes completely apart, and they say something I highlighted it, I can't find it the second. It says something like, Janet, more than anyone, was hurt by disloyalty within the group. Really?
Yeah.
Janet? The one who's made it a mission to go through and sleep with all the guys and to foment trouble and to tell stories meant to hurt Alice? She's the one that's most hurt by disloyalty within the group?
That tracks for me. Yeah. I know people like that. Yeah, absolutely. She's the one that sort of rallies them together and is the force of bringing them all together, but she also has to be the queen bee. So she's lifting people up and knocking other people down and making sure that everybody is dancing on her puppet strings. But if someone rejects that, her control of them is what loyalty to the group means to her, is rejecting her control over the group and them in particular. Then, yeah, she takes it very, very badly. Yeah.
Yeah. She was never my favorite character, so that's okay.
She's straight up evil. Yeah, she's awful. Here's a quote. Stop looking for the next secret door that is going to lead you to your real life. Stop waiting. This is it. There's nothing else. It's here, and you'd better decide to enjoy it, or you're going to be miserable wherever you go for the rest of your life forever. That's the book in one paragraph.
Yeah. One of the last things Alice says to him, right?
Is that Alice?
I think so. I think
it could be in Ember's tomb. Yes.
Yeah. She has broken her silence, because she hasn't been talking to him, but she's broken the silence enough to let him know how things are, at least according to her.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed we didn't get to see the cozy horse.
I did really like Ember though. Ember is this weak, pathetic, wretched god. It was just like sort of mean and spiteful and not Aslan-like in any way. Yeah. Just
clearly fancies itself Aslan-like.
Yes, yeah, but not. He shuts down argument. He's like, "How dare you question me?" And he has no power whatsoever, and no wisdom either, for that matter. He's just somebody says something to the effect of, "Yeah, the old gods, they're not, better. They're just old."
Martin says that. He's like, when you think old god, you think that'd be hard to kill.
Yeah,
they're not. They're just old.
That's such a great line.
And then he killed Ember. Yeah. But then he didn't, because we hear Ember's voice. Quentin hears Ember's voice as he's, fading from consciousness.
Yeah.
Dude, I really want to get back to Penny. What happened after his hands were bitten off? We know that he survived because he's trying to find a way into Middle Earth.
Oh, that's Josh, right?
No, that was Penny.
Was that Penny?
I thought it was Penny.
I think it's Josh. This is what they talk about at the end. Josh isn't with the trio that comes to get Quentin, because Josh is off in the Netherlands trying to find his way to Middle Earth because he wants to fuck an elf.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very Josh thing. That's not a Penny thing.
I suppose that's true. But Penny did disappear into the bookstore in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
After his hands were eaten.
You're talking about the series now.
No.
No?
No, in the book.
In the book?
Yeah, because the story gets told to Quentin by... No, it's in the letter. It's in the letter that he finds.
From Janet. Or from Elliot.
But they got Penny back to the Netherlands, and then Penny walked a couple of blocks away from that fountain, and stands in front of the doorway, and the doorway opens, and he goes in with all the books, and the doorway closes behind him.
Yeah.
So presumably, maybe he bled out once he got inside, because he had no hands left. But
I think in book 2 we get more of Penny, and we definitely get more of the Netherlands, and we get to go inside the libraries. The libraries are kind of amazing. Mm. Yeah.
Now, I can't decide the Netherlands. I feel like we've encountered that. I've encountered that somewhere before, where there was a place with fountains, and going into the fountains took you between
Narnia
realms.
is the Magician's Nephew.
Oh.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
Because I was like, do I remember this from the TV series? It seems like an oddly specific. I remember a lot about fountains. Okay, it's out of Narnia.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah. One of the best Narnia books, The Magician's Nephew. Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's all about traveling between worlds and the endless fountains to endless worlds, which they don't explore. They just go in and out of Narnia. But just it's another one of those things where you go, this pool leads to this magical world, and there are millions of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, where do they go? Yep, no time for that now. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, what the heck was Penny doing if he wasn't exploring where those pools went? But he spent months, an entire semester, even kicking around the Netherlands. Just mapping the Netherlands themselves? I mean, what use is that?
It's not clear to me how the buttons work. So Penny could get to travel to the Netherlands without the button because that was his specialty, traveling between worlds. But I'm not sure that he could travel through the fountains to somewhere else without a button. So, but that's not clear.
That is not clear.
Yeah.
Right. And the buttons, how the buttons work is also unclear. I mean, the actual technique, because the first time we see it in action, Alice simply grabs Quentin by the wrist, shoves her hand into Penny's pocket where the button is, and poof, they're gone.
Yeah.
Which made me think contact with the button.
Yeah.
But later, Penny's got the button clutched in his hand, ready to use it if they need it.
Yeah.
So then I started thinking it was, an actual, like a,
But it's not. It's just a little button.
Yeah, it's something that would have come off of a piece of clothing. So I don't know. I don't guess we need to know that.
Yeah.
Martin wanted the button.
Yes. Well, he wanted the button to destroy it so no one could ever make him leave Fillory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Martin's pretty far gone. I love the fact that there's just a renegade Chatwin, though, because, we have a renegade Pevensey in the first The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Edmund, Eustace?
Oh,
Edmund,
yeah.
Yeah, who goes off and allies with the White Witch, who's the evil, the big bad in the story.
For Turkish delight,
Turkish delight. He's a cheap,
which is not tasty at all.
Yeah, and then goes off and abandons his siblings to go and be with her and realizes this is terrible. I made a bad deal and now he's stuck. But I love that. I love that analogy to Martin there. He just wants to go off and do this other thing, and his siblings are holding him back. And yeah. And it works out very badly for him. Yeah. So another way this compares to Harry Potter, and I think negatively, is that, and I don't know how your experience of this might be different. You're reading this for the first time. To me, this book does not have a lot of narrative drive. That it's very rich and very complex and very thematically full. But in terms of the story, like while I enjoy every moment of the story as it's happening, I'm never wondering until we get to the very, very end, and then we're in Ember's Tomb, which is like the last 25%. I'm never wondering what happens next. I'm just sort of going through.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that Rowling does really effectively with Harry Potter. There's always the overarching, there's the Voldemort plot, but there's also a subplot for every book. It's like there's a big mystery and we have to solve it. There's the, what is the Philosopher's Stone and why is it hidden away? What is the Slytherin's heir that's stalking everyone in book 2? There's this, what happens next? You have to know. It's very compelling.
Mm-hmm.
And this I find a very compelling read, but it's not in the same way. It just not have that narrative drive that the Harry Potter books have. So what was your experience reading this?
Well, when you frame it like that, I would agree. Yeah, there's not. And this kind of, this again falls in that whole Catcher in the Rye thing.
Yeah.
It really works from the perspective of these are just going to be some screwed up powerful people. You've taken these young adults and you've given them godlike powers and no purpose. The fact that there's not a narrative drive kind of thematically fits, and the fact that the narrative drive that's there is forced upon them, manipulated upon them. Now that I'm reflecting on it, I kind of find that delightful.
Yeah. I like the fact that, the paramedic obviously has to come back and that it turns out to be Jane, and that they were ensnared is interesting. But that, I've read this book like 5 times, and as I was reading it through this time, I'm like, who the is the paramedic? Who does she turn out to be? Who's the watcher woman? I know that's a thing. It just kind of feels tacked on at the end. It doesn't feel like it's integrated. It's just like, this is an explanation for why all this shit happened to you. It's not a thing that propelled you forward onto a path to the best of your knowledge. Yeah.
Right.
It's a rationalization after the fact. Yeah. So, and so it doesn't stick with me. Every time I read this, I'm just like, what's happening now? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Anyway, if you like this and you are not afraid of trauma, which you are not, then highly recommend book 2. Don't think you'll like book 3, but book 2 you will enjoy. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm definitely interested in giving that a shot. I'm definitely interested in seeing what happened with Julia and how she comes back.
It's a pretty grim story. It's an amazing story. Yeah.
She manages to get from finger sparkles to flying, so you know.
Yeah. It's quite a leap. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all I got. I just have more quotes here that are more of the same. It's just over and over again. He would never have known the horror of really getting what he thought he wanted. Yeah. Again. So.
Yeah, I've got a few quotes in here that are fun, but I mean, conceptually, I don't know that I liked this book. I mean, there are. I mean, we spent the better part of an hour at this point talking about it. So I mean, there's content there. There's good stuff there. I'm sad that I left the book not liking anybody.
It's a problem. It really is.
And it's far from the only book I've read that has that. It might even be a style of writing. The dislikable protagonist school of book writing.
Yeah.
But it really, without further coaching, I'm just not interested in learning anything more about Quentin or his existing friends.
Yeah. Yep. Same.
But that's not to say it's not well written. The world building isn't fantastic. So those of you who are listening, who are on the fence, don't read it for the characters.
Yeah. If you're like, Harry Potter was great, but I want a grim and gritty Harry Potter. I want Zack Snyder's Harry Potter. Then this is the book for you.
Zack Snyder's Harry Potter. Yes, that is a very good description. All right.
Fantastic. So I think you're up next. What do we got in 2 weeks?
I don't know why this has been on my head, but it has. Actually, I do know. It's because of a song, but we'll talk about that next time. We're going to visit Dream Park by Larry Niven and Stephen Barnes.
Dream Park. I've read that at least once, so it'll be fun to revisit. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.